if we just go after the Houthis and this one and that, it's not going to make a damn bit of difference. The truth is that we either have to drop bridges or go after their munitions or send some cruise missiles in there. I don't know what the answer is. When Trump killed Soleimani, that was the end of it. They didn't respond. They knew Trump was serious.
There were 2 service members who were hit by a missile attack and died.
There was a missile attack, but it didn't start a world war. If we go after, everyone is saying, and what Biden is saying, I don't want a world war. I don't want to make a bigger war. He's such a wuss on the world stage.
So is Jeanine Pirro trying to goad Joe Biden into World War III. By calling him a wuss, by saying that he's weak, and she's not alone. We're gonna get into the others. And she is so thirsty for blood, for US service members to go back to the Middle East and die once again in great numbers, that she's not gonna be stopped by a little bit of a fact check from Jessica Tarlov, which that was a great fact check, by the way. Her point was, when Trump did a thing, that was it. Done, nobody died. That's not the case. It definitely happened exactly the way that it did in this case. There was a missile strike that killed people. And she tried to pretend that she knew that. Yeah, no, there was a missile strike, but there was no wider war. You didn't know that, but much more importantly, because not everybody's, who's gonna remember that? You don't care. You made a point, it was directly contradicted by the facts, and it's utterly irrelevant to you. So what did you actually mean? If the veracity of your claim was irrelevant to the argument you were making, what argument are you actually making? Well, it's the larger argument that Biden needs to do more. Now she'll say things like, well, but Trump didn't lead to a bigger war. But what are you calling for? You're calling for the destruction of Iranian infrastructure. She's calling for bridges to be bombed. She's calling for munitions to be, she's talking about attacking the military of Iran. It's not like the munitions are stored in a farmhouse in the hinterlands. It's a military base that she's talking about hitting. And the crazy thing is that Fox News wants to have their war and eat it too. They want to say, we're not for intervention. You know, Trump kept us out of wars. He kept us literally in the same exact wars we'd been in, by the way. But Biden is weak. Biden shouldn't get us in a big war, but he has to be strong. He shouldn't launch us into another war, but he should attack the military of Iran and just assume that they won't do anything in response to that. So look, they know the game they're playing. They know the impossible position that they're putting Joe Biden in. But it's an election season. They don't care. They don't care if this results in more US service members dying. They're trying to earn some points right now. And as I alluded to, it is not just Jeanine Pirro. You saw Donald Trump was sharing footage from Sean Hannity, where Sean Hannity was saying this is utter weakness from Biden, implying that he's not doing enough in reaction to this. Trump himself, in response to the attacks, had said, I ask all Americans to join me in praying for those who've been wounded. This brazen attack on the United States is yet another horrific and tragic consequence of Joe Biden's weakness and surrender. Remember, Joe Biden literally pulled us out of Afghanistan, something that Donald Trump to this day attacks him for, a war that Trump kept us in. So he kept us in the war. Joe Biden got us out of the war. Joe Biden appears to maybe be trying to not launch us into another regional war in the Middle East. And yet somehow coming out of this, Fox News would have you believe that Joe Biden is both weak and a warmonger, and Trump was super strong, but we weren't in the wars, even the ones that we were actually in. It's nonsensical. I'm having a hard time following it, Sharon. What do you make of all this?
Well, it is difficult to follow. And can I just say, you do a lovely Trump voice, but it's traumatic for me. I kind of want you to be left on camera because it's too close. And it kind of just, it throws me off. I'm telling you, my blood pressure, this whole thing. Listen, it's as if Hannity and Judge Janine, they don't even have an assistant who can give them some bad talking points, an assist here, an assist there. They just blurt out whatever. And with the judge, I actually thought that was an SNL skit. And I'm not kidding you. When you first hit the play button, I thought it was SNL. As she looked down like, I just got off the phone with a Boy Scout troop leader and she says cruise missiles and trying to sound important and like she knows how to conduct World War, whatever. She probably would love several installments. It's just all garbage and it's nonsense. And I don't know how you combat it. I don't know what the Biden administration could even say or do, or if you should push back on this wackiness.
Look, I guess the way that we combat it is sort of, the way that we've been trying to for a long time. We've been trying to make sure that the American people understand the cost of these sorts of conflicts. And remember, that took work for a long time from a number of different outlets. People were like largely supportive of the invasions initially of Iraq and Afghanistan. It took years for them to be turned against, like basically blind support for American imperial adventures. And now they are still largely against that sort of thing. It's why Fox News has to pretend that they're against intervention. They still understand that a lot of people, even Republicans, are not interested in us getting involved in another decades-long nation-building exercise in the Middle East. The issue is that they still want those things. They still want the money to flow to the defense contractors. They still love the idea of people in the Middle East being killed. And so that's why they're sort of jumping through hoops. It is a reminder that we were successful in that rhetorical battle. We just need to make sure that people are reminded and that we strengthen the aversion that they thankfully developed, perhaps belatedly, to these sorts of wars in the Middle East. But I want to add one other facet to this, and that is that Jeanine Pirro, used Trump as an example of how this is supposed to be managed, which is he killed Qasem Soleimani, and then that was it. And he did it because he's strong, and he did it to protect us. And that's not why he did it at all. We already know why he did it. It was revealed by John Bolton, who said he did order the early exit of the head of the Iranian Quds force. What a weird way to describe killing a man, the early exit. But in listening to him talk about his views on why that was important, it was clear to me it wasn't simply to eliminate this major figure who was the leader of Iranian terrorist actions, but because it was such a big event, he would get enormous credit for it. He did it because, remember, it wasn't just that he wanted generic credit in this area. He knew that Obama had all that cred from having gotten bin Laden, and he wanted his version of that, which is why after they killed Soleimani, he was making statements about how that guy was secretly worse than bin Laden and all that stuff. It was nonsensical, it was clownish at the time, but that's why he just wanted to be bigger and better and a bigger killer of terrorists than Barack Obama. It wasn't about safety in the Mideast. Now, hopefully that is what is central to Biden's response. He said after the deaths in Jordan, we will strive to be worthy of their honor and valor. We will carry on their commitment to fight terrorism, and have no doubt we will hold all those responsible to account at a time and in a manner of our choosing. But thankfully, that has not meant we're carpet bombing Iran, because Iran has already vowed that they will respond to any US strikes in the aftermath, because of course they will. Like, what would you do if Iran attacked US bases in Georgia? It's this weird thing where we expect, we'd respond in this way. That's very natural and very human. Everyone else won't do that. Every other country won't act as any human would. They'll be so intimidated by us, so impressed with our might that they would never support a terrorist movement that sought to strike us or anything like that. That has never been the truth. It is this myth that persists for some reason that I will never understand. So I am hoping that Biden will respond as he is required to, but in a measured fashion, not in the fashion that so many at Fox News are pushing him to. But what do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. And as Americans, we forget often that things of decades before, like the first Iraq War, gave us things like planes into buildings all those years later. I mean, it's something that we have to reckon with. And look, our leaders aren't perfect. I've not sat in that chair. I don't have my finger on the button. It's not fair to second guess them, but that is exactly what we're doing. You're also right about Trump wanting his viral moment, which is also why he tried to duplicate the same footage where Obama walked out and said Osama bin Laden, the name correctly, okay? He wanted that viral moment. It's the same reason why Melania ripped off Michelle's speech, right? Because it sounded good and they wanted to look the part without everything else that perhaps goes into it. So it's par for the course. We don't need to get in deep. We don't need another world war. We're already drawn into and inserting ourselves in many things that others wish we would extricate ourselves from.
100%. Yeah. And some would benefit. Some wealthy people, well-connected, they produce bombs and all that stuff. For most Americans, we have no interest. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.